Hi everyone, my name is Paula Galindez and I am a poet and literary translator from Argentina. And this year I had the huge honor of being selected by the PDC to work on some of Jackie Kay's poems as part of the Queer Digital Residency. So, of course, the experience was absolutely amazing because Jackie Kay is one of the poets I most admire, one of the living poets I most admire, but it has also brought me a lot to think about. Jackie Kay's poetry is fairly complex. It has wordplay, soundplay, historic references, meter. It deals with identity, with personal and collective history. Well, the list goes on and on. But I've decided to make this video and try and narrow them down to three main difficulties: language varieties, meter, and gender. Let's have a look. So, number one, language varieties. As you may know, Jackie Kay is a Scottish poet, and her last poetry book, Bantam, was written half in standard English and half in Scots, and it also plays with other varieties like Jamaican English. But even the poems that are written in standard English have a few tricks. For example, in Lines for Kilmarnock, the first poem of the book, Jackie writes, "The living still had to write a line. Messages. Poached rabbits. Out of your mind." So what's going on with that word messages? If you read it in standard English, it would be an actual message, the message that they are writing in their line. But in Scottish, messages has another meaning, which is connected to doing the shopping. So what do we do when we have to translate that into Spanish? Because we don't have a single word that means a message and going shopping. This was quite a headache, and I owe some of the credit to the people who participated in the PDC's workshop, translation workshop, because they gave me a great idea. The final version in Spanish translates the word messages as mandados. Mandados are things that you have to do outside the house. For example, going shopping is one of the mandados that you have to do. And it is also a wordplay because the verb mandar means send, which is what you do with the letter. So, crisis averted. But please hold, because in issue number 3, the language variety thing will come up again. Issue number 2, meter. For this one, I'm going to read the opening lines of The Imaginary Road, which is the last poem of the book. The road that was in your head has already found you walking. When you looked up ahead, it was your footsteps waiting. Then you heard the song of the road under the dirt and the dust, heard the song of the Delta Blue, and found the song you already knew. When I spoke to Jackie about this poem and about Bantam in general, she mentioned that music has a huge influence on her poetry. So keeping the musicality when you translate is very important. Now, the problem with this is English poetry is measured by accents, and Spanish poetry is measured by syllables. So what do? We have to find an equivalent. So what I did was try to keep a fixed meter in Spanish as well. So I translated most of these lines into 10-syllable and 11-syllable lines. So why 10 and 11 syllables, Paula? Is it because you're lazy and you couldn't keep 10 or 11 syllables? No, it's not. It's because Jackie doesn't write in fixed iambic pentameters or fixed trochaic pentameters or something like that. She varies. She has a certain mobility that also allows for the musicality in her poetry. I tried to keep a certain musicality in the translation, and I tried to make it fluent. Sometimes when we translate into fixed meter, we sacrifice fluency. But the fact is that most of this poem, The Imaginary Road, is fairly fluent. It's actually fairly easy reading at first sight, and that helps to allow us the space to reflect upon what we're reading. So, I'm going to read to you the first lines of my translation into Spanish. El camino imaginario. El camino que tenías en mente ya te supo encontrar caminando. Cuando miraste que había al frente, te estaban esperando tus pasos. Y oíste la canción del camino, bajo el polvo y la tierra. Oíste el blues que cantaba el delta. Y encontraste una canción que sabías. Number 3. Gender. One of the differences between Spanish and English is the fact that Spanish has more gendered words. For example, almost all adjectives in Spanish are gendered and all of the determiners are. So, when translating from English into Spanish, we usually assign a gender to the word that is ungendered in English. However, in Bantam, some of the poems are consistently ungendered, and this gives us a clue. So, I'm going to read the title and the first 2 lines of one of the poems in Bantam, which may sound fairly easy translation, but has given me a lot to work on due to the fact that it is completely ungendered. The poem is called Welcome Wee One, and it says, "Oh, my darling wee one, at last you're here in the world." I have to apologize for my terrible Scottish accent, but anyways, as you may have noticed, or maybe not, this poem is written in Scots, so we have to go back to the whole language varieties thing. When translating this poem into Spanish, I had to think of many possibilities to try and make this differentiation between standard English and Scots, because you have to think about the political implications of each kind of variant. You have to think about the geographical, the historical, etc., etc., etc. And you have to also bear in mind that translating the Scots into a specific variant of Spanish carries the weight of appropriation, which is something that we don't want to do, or at least is not my approach, because I think that translation can also be a window to other cultures. After discussing this with Jackie Kay and with myself for a long time, I came up with the idea of translating the Scots into a more rural variant of Spanish, but without thinking of a specific area of any Spanish-speaking country. So it's kind of a mix between several different rural Spanishes with some of the characteristics of these dialects. For example, the final vowel of some words is dropped. Let's talk about the translation of the title, Welcome Wee One. The first problem arises with the word welcome, of course, because welcome in English has no gender, and in Spanish it has to be either bienvenido or bienvenida or bienvenide. In this case, what I decided to do is to translate it as ya llegaste, which would mean something like you're finally here, or you've arrived. And it also has the benefit of keeping the alliteration. In the title Welcome Wee One, we have the alliteration of the sound wa, Welcome Wee One, and in Spanish we will have the alliteration of the sound sha, ya llegaste. And then we1 I decided to translate as mijita, mijita, dropping the final vowel, which is actually the gendered marker of the word. Alright then, so this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, and as much as I enjoyed translating Jackie Kay. And I hope I was able to convey some of the fun of translating poetry. Bye!